And away we go. It is IB Nation Sports Talk, the Friday rapid fire edition of the show. Three-man booth today. Vince DeDario, Jesse Stires, Sean Stires. Hola.
Normally
How's
I'm
everybody?
against the three-man booth, but in this regard, it just makes it that much better.
We can always move you down to the sideline if you'd prefer.
Oh, let's do it.
Put on your winter overalls, your coveralls, and see if you can bundle up.
I'll tell you
Back
what,
in the day.
I can't compete with the view of the sideline reporters these days. I can't compete with that, so I don't think it would work out too well.
You mean you're not good looking enough? Is that
That's
what
exactly
you're saying?
what I mean. Yes.
Okay.
And especially if the camera puts on 10 pounds, I'm in big trouble. So
yeah, that's exactly right. Well, we probably shouldn't even go there. There's just things that we're not allowed to talk about anymore.
I know what you were about to say, and I was trying to dance around it, so we'll just let that one slide.
Yep. All right. Well, we've got a lot that we're going to get to today.
Yeah, we do.
Was it Andre? Was Andre the one who put in the Mount Rushmore of TV shows super chat yesterday?
It was not. I'm going to have to go back and figure out who it was. Yeah, because we said we were going to bring it back tonight. And so Andre's on top of it. He was ready for it.
Yep. Vince told me we've got to add this Mount Rushmore of TV shows tonight.
Yep.
So looking forward to that. We will have that among our many topics on today's show. But let's just start with this because we've got plenty of Notre Dame stuff that we're going to talk about today. Fill in the blank. New Notre Dame defensive coordinator Chris Ash needs to do blank in his first season to make you feel good about his hiring. Who wants to start it off? Jesse, do you want to go?
Yeah, I guess I'll start with this one.
Okay.
I think he needs to keep the same type of intensity. I think Notre Dame is a defense that dictates terms to the offense and a defense that kind of, imposes their will to a degree. They're not going to allow you to let their game plan influence them. I think they want to be, the hammer of the nail in a lot of situations. So I think that's the kind of thing that you need to continue to look for if you're Chris Ash and as Notre Dame fans, because when Notre Dame's defense kind of becomes responsive or becomes a sponge and they're absorbing, what the offense is doing to them, I think that's when they could get into some dangerous situations.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't want to hold him up. I mean, yes, he's going to get compared to Al Golden numerous times throughout, between now and ad nauseum, or forever. He's going to get compared to Al Golden for the next few years. I mean, however long Chris Ash is here, he's going to get paired out. Well, this is what Al Golden did in year one. Well, this is what Al Golden did in year two. And this is what Al Golden did in year three. And why is he not as good in year one that Al Golden was in year three? That kind of stuff. And so I don't want to do that. Right. But he does have some pretty elite players to deal with, in whatever offensive philosophy, defensive philosophy, defensive formation that he decides to employ. So the bar is going to be set high. And I don't really have a problem with the bar being set high. I think that, Notre Dame still needs to have a championship level defense. Now, what that equates to from a numbers game, I'm not prepared to do that, but it still needs to be a defense that gets turnovers and sets the offense up for easy scores. And that needs to be consistent.
Yep. Some interesting responses. Corey Dean says, "Prove him wrong."
Okay, fair.
Let's be honest. He's gonna have to prove a lot of people wrong. It's not just Corey that he's gonna have to prove wrong. DK standards, very baseline, succeed. Okay, that's pretty broad.
What does that mean?
That's right. What exactly does success looks like? Brian, a little more literal. Replace Watson Cross. Yeah, I mean he's gonna have to do that to succeed, and Riley Mills, for that matter. And then Joe Allen says maintain and continue. So I think Joe, if you look at the basics of what he's saying, I think it's kind of along the lines of what I'm thinking. And I can't believe that I'm about to quote Mike Tomlin, but after watching Hard Knocks, the in-season Hard Knocks, he's kind of become my new Zen master. They make shirts that say this: the standard is the standard. That is a Mike Tomlin thing. The standard is the standard. And Al Golden has set the standard, and now it's up to Chris Ash to uphold the standard. It's an elite defense, and this defense has to remain elite, is what it comes down to. There is no room for slippage there. But what if Chris Ash were to go out and his defense in game 1, when Notre Dame goes to Miami to open up the season, what if they gave up an 89-yard touchdown pass and a 60-yard touchdown run in game 1? Do you think some people would flip out?
So 2 massive plays like that equal touchdowns? Yes, people are going to flip out 100%.
How would you react to that? How would fans react to that? 89 yards, 60 yards, both of them touchdowns. Would you want him fired? Probably so.
Well, fans will say fired. I won't say fired, but you can explain away 1. 2 is a little harder to explain away. I will say that. It's
a little bit of a trick question, though, Vince, because you might remember that was 2021, NIU. Marcus Freeman, game 1 at Florida State. Right. He gave up those 2 exact plays. And the guy's the head coach. Enough. 3 months later, he became the head coach. So everyone's going to overreact, though, if that happens. But I'm just saying.
They will. And they overreacted when he did it, too.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
And I didn't call for him to be fired after that game, but it was concerning.
I didn't call for him to be fired, but it's very concerning when you see those kind of explosives. Game 1, you got a new defensive coordinator, right?
Right. Absolutely. And that
they did win the game. It took overtime, but they did win the game, Andre.
That's going to be key, right? They can't lose. They can't lose that game because of the defense. If they lose the game because of the defense, the pitchforks are going to be sharpened and the torches will be lit at that point.
Yeah. And as Andre says, the 2 safety blitz game 1 at Ohio State, things got better after that. Things looked very shaky. Things got better after that. Things got a lot better after that. But I mean, look at Northern Illinois, the explosive plays they gave up in that game. Sure. That was literally one of the big differences in that game was the explosive plays that they made in the first half. But I guess, again, my point is things are going to happen, and we can't judge everything based on what happens at game 1 in game 1, but we will.
Very true.
A lot of people will.
Again, we've said this a million times. It's so much easier to pick apart a win, right? I want to be picking apart a team after they win. So hopefully we're talking about a win after game 1 if he gives up stuff like that. But a loss would be fairly devastating, especially in this day and age, right? With the playoff. And do we really want to relive, oh my God, now they've got to win every single game in a row. It's every week. The playoffs.
We don't need that in week 1 or week 2. Yeah.
Right. Do we really want to relive that whole saga? I don't,
I definitely think it's a possibility, but I feel like I'm not really worried that it's actually going to happen because of all of he's the only new thing. So much is still staying the same. Still a lot of the players on defense, position coaches. I think Marcus Freeman is there to help. I think Mickens will be there to help. I think what I'm most concerned about is, can it be a championship caliber defense? Can they reload with some of the stuff that they lost on defense? Because a lot of their success this season, especially, as they went down into the playoffs, was because of the defense. And I know they had, probably their worst game against Ohio State, but can they keep that championship level caliber defense is, I think, the important thing. And I think,
and that's why so much is on Chris Ash, because you've got so much coming back, right?
Right. And so it would be a colossal flop if things don't go well, but I'm more so inclined to think it's going to continue to get better, honestly. And yeah.
Hope so.
Because you look at Al Golden specifically and the defense that he inherited. It was a pretty good defense, but there was more turnover on either one of those defenses than what Ash is going to inherit this year.
Yeah.
A big part of it is going to be, what's the scheme going to look like? How close is it going to look to what Notre Dame and what Al Golden just ran? Are they going to keep the rover? All those different things. And I'm sure once this thing becomes final, we're going to get a press conference here within the next week or two, and we'll get to ask some of those questions, kind of get some hints at exactly
Will we?
what
Someone
that's
needs
gonna
to ask, so what twist do you plan to put on things? What wrinkles do you think you'll have?
He's like, well, it all depends on the personnel.
we gotta crunch some
I gotta
film and
watch some film. Yeah, and I gotta talk to Coach Freeman. You know, we're gonna be on the same page.
that's right.
I don't know if that's how Chris Hash sounds. I've never heard him talk.
Irish English checking in from Kansas, asking if I'm going to be able to watch the Penn State Iowa wrestling duel tonight. Is it on Big Ten Network? Does anybody know? Irish English, I'm sure you know. If it's on Big Ten Network, I'm going to have to get out of this show and go hit the record button. Make sure that I do.
Let's find out.
Good call. All right. Thank you very much, sir. Irish English says yes.
Oh, okay.
I'm guessing around 8 o'clock, something like that. Should have plenty of time to get out and record. That's big.
They
time.
must not be in. They must not be. I don't know the calendar of collegiate wrestling. So they are obviously not in the postseason yet.
No, NCAA tournament doesn't come around. It's basically about the same, like first week, same time of March Madness and all that kind of stuff. So there's still a ton of time. There's like a whole like month plus left, 7 o'clock Eastern time. So we still got time. Yeah. So there's high school, Vince, especially in Indiana. It's just a sham with wrestling. It's like, well, we're just doing this to say we're doing it. Let's buy them a ribbon and
what?
These,
what are you talking about?
Double. There's not even a such thing as double elimination tournaments. It's just, come on, man. What a joke. All right.
You mean like wrestlebacks, things like that?
Well, if that's what you want to call it, yeah.
Is that what you call double elimination? You got to wrestle back. You lose, and you got to come through the losers bracket.
We just called it double elimination when I was in high school. We didn't call it necessarily wrestle.
They do those. Believe me, I've had to sit through them from like 9 to 5 all freaking day.
It's all elimination rounds. I know.
I'm not going to defend high school wrestling.
They get to state, though. They get to state, and it's like, oh, yeah, you get one match. You win, you're staying in. You lose, you're done. Okay, thanks for the season.
Only in the first round.
Well, again, that's what I'm saying. You don't have to go down
first match.
ESPN's move to exercise their option with the ACC through 2036 includes Notre Dame playing more games against Clemson, Miami, and Florida State. The Irish would play at least 2 of those 3 teams every year in rotation. So my question is, and I know you guys talked about this a little bit yesterday, who benefits the most from this arrangement, Notre Dame or the ACC?
That's easy. It's the ACC, in my opinion anyway, because the more high-profile games that the ACC has, the more money that they're going to get out of this deal. And that's why Notre Dame is being a good soldier, and they're saying, okay, we'll do this so that that package is higher, right? Now, Notre Dame's going to get more money out of the deal as well, but overall, the entire conference is going to get more money out of the deal, and the entire conference isn't having to play in these games. So, Notre Dame gets a benefit. It helps their strength of schedule, I would think, more often than it doesn't. And they're going to get a monetary bump because they get some of the ACC money. But overall, the entire ACC gets a bump in money. And the last time I checked, only 3 of the teams are involved in this little scenario, plus Notre Dame. So the other 15 teams, or however many teams are in the ACC now, are getting a bump in pay without having to do anything. So it's the ACC for me.
So will Pat Narduzzi be happy about that? Like what's
no?
Like on the scale of nads to no nads, like where does Pat Narduzzi fall on the?
Well, he always falls on the no nads end of that, whatever spectrum we're talking about. But, yeah.
All right.
No, I think the ACC definitely has to benefit the most from it, because if it's a requirement of Notre Dame, then of course, like the ACC is going to benefit from it. And obviously, ESPN doesn't feel like the deal is worthy enough if a national brand and powerhouse isn't on the ticket like Notre Dame. It's basically saying, Clemson, Miami, Florida State, you guys aren't enough by yourself. We need to add in Notre Dame here and get these ratings up a little bit more. And that's all it matters. I mean, that's all it is just more ratings and eyeballs on the game,
right?
Which is, more money for ESPN. So, of course, ESPN is going to require that in the new contract because they want to make money. It has to be worthwhile for them at the end of the day. And so it's got to benefit the ACC because I mean, without it, ESPN wouldn't fund them through 2036, and the conference might as well just fold at that point.
Well,
Yeah,
that's the thing, right? Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Follow up. Sorry.
I was just going to say the ACC can't fold. Like Notre Dame could find a new home. They could go to the Big East, I'm guessing, for
everyone's
everything else.
benefit if the ACC keeps going.
Exactly.
Right.
And so Notre Dame will do its part to make sure that relationship is still strong and that the league is financially viable. And a lot of that has to do with the TV contract, right? So
yeah,
they don't want to see Florida State jumping ship. They don't want to see North Carolina jumping ship or whatever school is the flavor of the day to leave the ACC and go to one of the other conferences that, by the way, aren't asking for them to go. But they want to keep the ACC a whole. And
we want to go. We don't know where we'd actually go.
Right.
Nobody wants us.
It just cracks me up. Like the SEC and the Big Ten are like, yeah, we're good. Anyway, yep. So dumb.
Actually, guys, not looking to add right now.
Yeah.
Or ever maybe. But
right.
Yeah, I mean, Notre Dame just keeps propping up the ACC as much as it makes the Narduzzi's of the world, mad because they're not all in. I mean, we get it. There's a reason the ACC and Jim Phillips, that they would want Notre Dame all in. It's because Notre Dame adds a big value to that package, but that's also this arrangement. They add a huge value to it. That's why they want to do it. I do think it's just, worth going back and noting for, people who don't follow Notre Dame very closely to remember Notre Dame was supposed to actually play Miami this year, for like the ACC people or anyone outside who want to criticize Notre Dame's schedule. They would have actually played both Miami and Florida State this season. But because Dan Radakovich apparently doesn't know how to count to 12, Notre Dame didn't get to play Miami because he scheduled a 13th game for the Miami Hurricane football team, Florida A&M. And because Florida A&M, and they didn't want to back out of that, rather than making Miami hold up its end of the scheduling agreement that's part of the ACC, part of their own conference, Miami chose to play the Rattlers instead of the Irish. And Notre Dame was forced as a result at the last minute to go out and find another opponent. And that, kids, is How I Met Your Mother. Oh, wrong. I'm sorry. It's the wrong show. That, kids, is how Notre Dame ended up playing Army at Yankee Stadium because Miami backed out of this deal and Notre Dame had to go out and find another opponent. That's why they played an extra group of 5 team. That's why they played Army this year. That's why they played 2 service academies this year. But, it's one thing to make the schedule. It's another thing to actually uphold the schedule. And that's my question. So, like, the ACC is going to make, Notre Dame, not make, but, they want Notre Dame to add these extra teams. Is the ACC actually going to uphold this thing if Notre Dame enters into this? Because again, we just saw how easy it was for Miami to back out of this deal. And, I just have a feeling, because Miami was supposed to come here this year. If that had been Miami's home game, I just bet Miami is not backing out of that. Like at that point, I'm just betting that Florida A&M gets the short end of the stick and they're out trying to find another opponent. And Miami doesn't get its bye game because that ESPN, if they had found out about that, do you think ESPN was going to let Miami back out of that if that was a Miami home game? But
no chance.
They don't care that it, because it's a Notre Dame home game and it wouldn't.
But NBC doesn't have enough,
That's exactly right.
Oomph to enforce anything, frankly.
Right.
So yes, it would have been a completely different scenario if that was a Miami home game. Completely different.
Right. So I mean, this obviously benefits the ACC and ESPN more than it does Notre Dame. But like if you go back, to that game that was pushed off the schedule, again, it was supposed to be a Notre Dame home game. So it's interesting. I went and kind of looked, just in terms of, like what this potentially adds. If you look back to 2017, the year after, the Notre Dame's disaster in 2016, the Irish have averaged almost 11 wins a year since 2017. They've had at least 10 wins 7 times. Miami and Florida State in that same time period have combined for 7 losing seasons in there. So, like, I realize that they're supposed to be 2 of your marquee programs, but that's not how they played, So
Right.
what this actually, because like even the Florida State was horrible last year. That did nothing
Terrible
for Notre Dame, and we'll kind of get to that, the rest of that here in a minute. But, if the ACC is going to jump through all the hoops to make ESPN happy, are they going to make sure that Notre Dame is actually, also hosting at least one of those games every year, because like I don't want to see Notre Dame get stuck, out there and like, okay, well, you're playing Miami and Clemson, but both of those games are going to be on the road. They need to make sure
Right.
they're going to play 2 of those 3, that at least one of those is going to be a home game every year for Notre Dame as well.
I would hope so. I mean, there's no way Notre Dame is just going to just lay back and just let it all happen. You know what I mean? I don't see that being the case. I don't see Pete Bavacqua or Marcus Freeman or whatever the people involved are just gonna lay back and be like, yeah, we'll do both of those games on the road every single year. Like I don't see that being the case. I don't.
Well, and I'm not saying they would do it every single year, but they just need to ensure.
Yeah.
If this is the new deal, because the old deal was obviously you play 5 ACC teams and they rotate them in there. And I actually looked at some of the future schedules. There are, like it kind of averages out about every other year. Notre Dame was supposed to play, there's like 2 of these 3 would have been on the schedule anyway. But yeah, so it definitely. What do you guys think? We're saying that it benefits the ACC and probably ESPN more. Do you like the fact that they're doing this to Notre Dame's schedule?
Yeah, I like it because I don't see anything wrong with having a top tier ACC, a quote unquote, who you would expect to be a top tier ACC opponent every season, because of some of the critiques that I think Notre Dame faced this season. Is you're not in a conference, well, you need to sort of have a little bit more, meat on the bone. And I think that's the fine line that you have to balance, because we've seen teams who, don't have a tremendously impressive out of conference schedule, weak teams, and there's really no punishment for it. But at the same time, I think if you're Notre Dame, you're just in a different kind of situation. You're scrutinized a little bit differently by the national media. So whether you think it's maybe fair or not, I still think that it bodes well, or it's a good, image for Notre Dame to say, hey, okay, we'll play, even though we're not in the ACC, we'll continuously schedule who's likely going to win the ACC every year. Like if you tell me, odds on favorite, if you're given Miami, Florida State, and Clemson at the beginning of every season to win the ACC, you would take that bet. And so I think that bodes well for Notre Dame.
I think it's good for Notre Dame because you are guaranteed to at least get a couple of names on the schedule. Like they schedule this crap so far out that you can never guarantee that teams are going to be any good once it actually becomes to reality, right? Like this Florida State game has been on the schedule for a while. You would think, hey, this is going to be a big game. This is going to be a good game. And they were awful, right? They were really good last year and they were awful this year. And so,
but even, like those, I was talking about the losing seasons. Florida State is actually like, again, combined Miami and Florida State since 2017, 7 losing seasons. Florida State's had 5 of them, they've actually been worse than Miami in that stretch. But everyone banked, put that game in primetime last year, and look what that turned out.
I think it naturally kind of plays into, though, like, a part of this too is who does Notre Dame have history with? These kind of, you want to call them rivalries, but they still have history with Miami. They still have history with Florida State. And then, I think I brought this up yesterday. It's a conversation that's been had before. Why not introduce Clemson as kind of like that new rival? So it's like playing into these, I wouldn't call them rivalries, but there's familiarization with these programs. And I think they're all top tier programs. And when they play each other, I mean, it does good for both sides, especially when you're the home team in that situation. So,
well, do you want these programs to be contenders every year to give, to potentially, boost Notre Dame's resume after the fact? Or are you just content with, hey, regardless of what the record is, fine, stack the wins. Doesn't matter how good they actually are.
I would say more often than not, I would like them to be at least in the upper echelon of the ACC. But if there happens to be a down year, then there happens to be a down year. I mean, you can't blame Notre
Right.
Dame for that. You know what I mean? Like they're at least attempting to schedule the big boys, the blue bloods, or whatever terminology that you want to use. And more often than not, look, I want to see a good game. I don't want to cover a snooze fest. And
no,
frankly,
that's exactly right. Like I'm
yeah.
satisfied if they were at least as good as Louisville was this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
Yep,
like-
I agree with that.
8-9 wins, like if they can stay in that range, I think that suits everybody's purposes.
Yeah,
just
I
fine.
do too.
They're
Yep.
a winning team. They're going to go to a bowl. Like I think that's, you know, like they don't have to be elite and in playoff contention
Right.
necessarily. Although because you're in a conference, if you're in that 9-win range, you've got a good chance of getting to your conference championship game, just like Clemson this year.
Yep.
I would say I would simply prefer these games over MAC schools. So if these are replacing MAC schools,
It's a great point. I was thinking
then
about that
I
today,
think
too.
anything's better than, because one, it's a MAC school, and two, Notre Dame has struggled with them. So just get them off the schedule. You know, save
I
yourself
don't think it's
from the
replacing
embarrassment.
it because I think they're still going to play 5 ACC teams, right? It's not 5 plus these 2. So I don't think it's replacing anything.
Right. It's like the question is going to be, because they've got these, you know, because they have the Notre Dame ACC part of the schedule is just like everything else. It's already plotted out through 2036. Right. They're going to have to rearrange
change some
stuff. Teams
yeah.
are going to, like, are you going to make an NC State or a Wake Forest mad because Notre Dame's not going there now, or Pittsburgh, you know, because you're going to lose a home game potentially with Notre Dame because you're replacing them with Clemson or Miami or Florida State.
Which I'm fine with, by the way, because I am not a big fan of playing the bottom feeder ACC schools. You know what I mean? Like I'm okay if they don't play Pitt on a regular basis, or Wake Forest on a regular basis, or even Virginia on a regular. You know what I mean? Like I'm cool with it kind of rotating between those 3, and then you add a different 3 every year. I'm okay with that. You know, the less time some of those teams are on the schedule, the better it is, in my opinion.
Or shall we say a Stanford?
They should have done that a lot. They had the perfect opportunity.
Now Stanford's part of this deal. They're going to keep them in there. So that means you've got 6 ACC opponents, including Stanford.
Yeah, that's the problem. They're not even considering Stanford as an ACC opponent when it comes to scheduling. You know what I mean? Like, I really wish that Stanford would just become, you've got those 3 marquee, of which you're playing 2, and then you've got 3 more slots. Just put Stanford in the rotation, man. Like, why do you have to play them every single year? It doesn't do anything for you. Nothing.
See,
I'm so mad.
Here's a possibility. Like, you could kill 2 birds with 1 stone, because Notre Dame will probably never do this because they want to pretend that Stanford is a rival for some reason, even though they can't sell the place out when they go out to Stanford. But okay, you don't want to play a home game in South Bend in November, or make this Clemson, Miami, Florida State like every other year.
All
like
Southern schools.
You're going to go to USC one year, make one of these 3 the other Thanksgiving weekend. So you're going to either South Carolina or Florida every other year.
I like it. I think that needs to go in the suggestion box at Notre Dame.
Boom. Hit the big red button. Next question for you. Is Jaden Greathouse a breakout player candidate for next season, or has he already broken out, Jesse?
I couldn't wait for this question. I couldn't wait to take the lead. I hope Salty's got his volume turned all the way up, because I've been looking at the
hearing aid volume or the volume on his computer.
Both.
You might have to specify.
So Jaden Greathouse at Notre Dame has started in 28 combined games. That includes, regular season, bowl games, the championship run. In those 28 games, he's got 60 receptions, 857 receiving yards, 9 touchdowns. So let's average that out per game. That's 31 yards per game, 2 receptions per game, and 1 touchdown every 3rd game. I don't know about you, but a breakout guy to me needs to be averaging more than 30 yards a game and 2 receptions per game. to me, a breakout guy is a guy who's maybe around the 80 yards per game.
So I get what you're saying. I hear you. You're saying breakout has more to do with a full season body of work than
just
one
a
or
moment.
two big performances in a game.
Yeah, just a moment. No, like we don't need a moment guy. We need a full regular season beast guy. That's a breakout guy to me.
He did lead Notre Dame in yardage this season with just under 600 yards.
Not enough.
And second most receptions.
Yeah.
Not enough.
I need more. I need more than that.
Okay.
I rest my case.
Vince, it sounds like you're leaning in Jesse's direction.
Oh, I was good. I was very much in Jesse's corner. I was curious to see which way he was going to go because he was so adamant with his stats. You know, he's just like his old man with the stats, bringing stats to the whole equation.
What are stats? They don't lie, Vince.
They can. Just ask your dad. Stats are for losers. Listen, here's the thing. I completely agree with Jesse in that if you're going to be a breakout star, if you are going to be, the number one guy, it needs to be more consistent. That's what it needs to be. He had a great playoff, right? He had a great playoff run. That's awesome. But I need him to be there all season long. Now, I'm not blaming it all on him by any stretch of the imagination, okay? He didn't have a guy that was just going to sit back there and throw the pill all over the field. Like, that just wasn't who Riley Leonard was, and it wasn't who he's ever going to be. That changes whoever the starting quarterback is for Notre Dame in 25. So if Greathouse is going to be that guy, then it's time for him to be that guy. And he has not broken out yet. He had a couple of breakout games. He has not had a breakout season. He still needs to do that.
I think he's already broken out. I think the national championship game and the Orange Bowl, when you have back-to-back 100-yard games and 3 total touchdowns, basically you're pushing, what was it? Like you're pushing 240 yards in those games. I think that those 2 performances were his breakout. Those are saying, here I am, world. See the big G on my chest. I've got my cape on my back. I'm Jaden Greathouse. I'm here to stay. I think that was his breakout. I get the argument you're making that maybe it needs to be over the course of the full season, like you need to be the guy. I think he has shown he can be the guy, and I think that those 2 performances were his breakout.
I agree with you. If he continues this into next season, if we see this 100-yard breaking ankles, scoring touchdowns in the first 6 games, and now we've got 8 to 9 straight games of him doing this, I would say yeah, but 2 is too small of a sample size for me to say he is fully broken out.
This is where I have the court reporter read back what you just said. Do I need to have it read back to you, Sean? You said he has shown he can do it. He needs to prove that he can do it the whole time. You said can do it.
But I don't think
done it yet.
I don't think that he has to. Okay, like if maybe I chose. Okay, maybe can was not the correct phrasing. What should be the correct phrasing? I think he's done it. He is here. Okay. Salty agrees with me.
Of course he does. And then he's going to go to sleep on his Jaden Greathouse pillow tonight.
I think that when he has someone, who is more willing to pull the trigger, and I think who has better overall vision of the field, better anticipation, the way that he, reads defenses and all those different things, I think that Jaden Greathouse is going to look a lot different next year. I mean, the guy has been starting.
Oh, yeah.
Again, I think that those 2 performances, that was it.
There's no doubt next year needs to be his year.
Yeah, somebody needs to step up. Malachi Fields, Faison, Greathouse, all 3. That would be fantastic. He has, and this is where I agree with Sean. He's proven he can do it. I just now need to see him do it.
And I do agree with
you. But again, it's chicken or the egg, because is it on him or is it on the distributor of the football?
Sure. Oh, absolutely. No, I agree with that. But that part goes away in 25. So this is where he has an opportunity to be that guy, because that excuse now goes away, because they're not going to have a run-oriented quarterback, no matter who wins the quarterback battle. Yes, some guys run the ball better than other guys or whatever, whatever argument you want to make there.
Mhm.
But every one of the three that are going to be competing throw the ball better than they run the ball. And so that excuse goes away. So this is his chance.
Salty says breakout is a single event, not a season. You don't break out all season. The season becomes your broken out level. I think breakout is a moment. I think it's a sprint, not a marathon when it comes to a breakout, because you talk about a breakout performance.
So did Aeneas Williams break out against Penn State?
Or is he about to break out?
Those are really just 2 plays, though. Like, I think that's a little bit different.
Yeah, but that's great. Greathouse got the chunk of his fame off of 2 plays. One against Penn State.
Really?
And one against Ohio State. Both touchdowns.
But he also went over 100 yards in both games, something that no receiver for Notre Dame had done all season prior to those 2 games. The previous 100-yard game. So like, let's spin this to Jordan Faison then. Because Jordan Faison had a great Sun Bowl last year, had a solid season, up and down because of injury.
Sure.
Has Jordan Faison broken out?
I don't think so.
Nope.
I think him and Greathouse are very similar.
Agreed.
They've shown flashes, some burst moments, but I've not seen. I just went back and looked. Greathouse had like 6 or 7 games with under 25 receiving yards. Like, if you're a dude at wide receiver, you got to get more than.
This was the story of the entire season, right? It's the story of the entire season for Notre Dame's offense, that the receivers weren't a bigger part of the offense, that they weren't more downfield. It's what we kept looking for. Unfortunately, it didn't come. Maybe we need to do a poll on this, on the champions.
We might have to. You might not like what you see.
We might not like what we see. I don't know how.
I wasn't going to say that, though. You don't concede when you're in court, Jesse. Come on now.
Brian says Faison's hurting himself by not committing to football. I don't think I agree with that.
I completely disagree with that. I could not disagree with that more than anything else I could possibly disagree with.
Now
I don't know if that made any sense. But look, the movements that he makes and the things that he does on the lacrosse field are very similar to what it takes to be a wide receiver. If he was any other position, if he was a quarterback, if he was a middle linebacker, just for the exact reason that Drake Bowen isn't playing baseball this year, because he's going to focus on football, right? There's way more mental acuity needed to be a middle linebacker. There's way more physicality needed to be a middle linebacker, and it doesn't translate to what he was doing in baseball. You look at Faison and what he does on the lacrosse field, it's very similar to what he does on the football field. So
same cut, same type of route running.
He mentally he picks up the offense. I mean, if anything, last year would have been his worst year because it's the first year in Denbrock's offense. This will be year 2. He needs spring ball even less this year than he ever would have needed it before. So I have no problem. I don't think it has anything to do with anything. And he's able to obtain a championship mindset by winning a national title too. That doesn't hurt. So I don't think it hurts him in any way.
It's interesting. I'm surprised that they never brought it up in the broadcast when Jordan Faison, I guess I haven't rewatched the broadcast, so maybe they did, but when he threw that 2-point conversion, he was a high school quarterback. He was he was an option quarterback, but he was a high school quarterback. That's how great an athlete that Faison is. The guy shows up after playing option quarterback in high school, and he all of a sudden, it's like you're a wide receiver, and it's like he's just so gifted at everything.
Missing spring ball didn't hurt him this year at all.
I think this year was much more just about the injuries. And
exactly, because he was present. He was present at a lot of spring practices. So he was taking mental reps and doing all of those things, and so he wasn't physically going through spring practice, but he was physically going through lacrosse, which again, very similar body movements. So, and you're wearing equipment and the whole deal. And he's elite. Look, if you want him to choose, he's probably going to choose lacrosse. I hate to break the news to you. So you don't want him to choose between one or the other.
All right, fill in the blank. Notre Dame women's basketball's new Allstate Insurance TV commercial that features Hannah Hidalgo, Sonia Citron, Maddie Westbald, Leah Tu King, and Liza Carlin is blank. And you guys don't have any excuses because I know I sent you the
You did.
commercial.
It's lacking because there's no Sean Stires in it. That's my answer. That's what I was looking for. I'm watching the whole thing, and I'm looking, I'm listening.
Play-by-play call. I did notice there's not like an announcer in there of any kind, is there?
I'm just saying.
So I'm not gonna lie to you. Before I was reading the questions before the show, and I was like, "Man, what video is he talking about?" And then I watched it. So
the one I sent you yesterday.
Yeah,
said
you're like, we will use this tomorrow.
And so I made sure I watched it, and
might as well be texting Brian.
Oh,
I thought it was pretty lighthearted and fun, like quick,
was.
easy. You know, that had to be like one of the easiest commercials to do because it looks like they're just kind of standing there. And then obviously they weren't really in the arena, so it was like green.
They were.
Screen. Oh, they were.
This is
okay. That's a great question because it didn't look like they were either.
I thought they were green screened in.
I thought that might have been. I got some background on this because.
Okay, let's go.
What day was that?
Inside.
Today's Friday. 2 days ago, Wednesday morning, I'm sitting on my couch like I do every morning when I get up. I'm drinking my coffee. I've got my laptop on my lap. I'm, like doing some stuff. I've got NFL Network on the TV, and this commercial comes on, and it's an Allstate commercial, and all of a sudden it's like there's Hannah Hidalgo's face, and it's like, oh, there's Maddie, and like all these Notre Dame players, and so I back it up, and I watch it, and so like if you haven't seen it yet, it just
we can show it, can't we? It's on YouTube
this week. Yeah, it's on YouTube. I'll have to see. Do you guys have it? Can you put it in the chat so that people can watch it?
Oh, there you go. That's a good idea. Yeah, I've got it right here.
So it's what it is. It's like it's supposed to be there's a game going on, and all of a sudden this crazy fan, Irish fan is like, jumping around and celebrating on the court and all this stuff. All right, we just put it up in the YouTube or in our chat on the show there. It's only 30 seconds long. Salty says show it. I mean, I'm sure that Allstate would love us to.
I don't know what the rules are. I don't know if we'll get demonetized. It's not worth it.
Too much can happen. And the actual leprechaun is in there too. Colin the leprechaun.
Oh, was he? I see. I watched it once.
I saw that.
So I got the skinny. They shot that in the arena the day after Notre Dame's win over UConn. The next morning, they actually shot that in the arena. And then I was talking with one of the players about it, and she said that they brought about like 50 or 60 fans in, and they kind of, like strategically moved them around to some different spots. Yep. But they were actually out there on the court. None of it was green screen. They actually did it on the court day after the UConn game.
No kidding.
So it was
I'm
pretty
going to have to watch it again because it did look like it wasn't Purcell. You know what I mean? Obviously, lighting and stuff like that has to do with it. But I thought it was cool.
Michael says, who cares? Do it. Well, we care because if we put up something that's copyrighted, we
don't make money.
YouTube, they take our show down off YouTube, and what Vince just said, we don't make any money.
This is our job.
This may surprise you. We're here to make money.
We love every one of you. We do.
That's right. We do.
But,
and I mean, let's just be honest. If you want to throw in some super chats right now, we can do a super chat mailbag at the end of this show. I mean, come on.
There you go. The problem is if we show this and we get in trouble, all those super chats go away. So
that's right. That's right.
We can't really have that.
So anyway, that's the background. It was actually shot in the arena. No green screen, live people, live bodies. So what do you think, Jess?
Yeah, I still think it's like really lighthearted. I think it's really fun, and I think it's like just the amount of camera time, right? Like it's like a quick cameo. You get to see the full starting lineup, and I think it's great to use it now because I mean, what's starting in a month? March Madness, and so if you want to familiarize yourself with a team that's going to make a deep run into the tournament and one of the nation's best, I think it's a great commercial that gives them a lot of natural face time.
And full-blown NIL opportunity. right?
That's
Yeah.
also
Like
true.
5
They all
players,
just made a lot of money.
5 actual players in an
Yeah.
actual commercial airing on TV. So it was pretty cool.
That was awesome, frankly.
Yeah.
I'm
It's like, is it the best commercial in the world? I mean, probably not. But like Jesse said,
No, it's quick,
lighthearted,
sweet, to
fun.
the point.
Yeah, and it features Notre Dame and the actual players out there.
Well, the very first view is like the entire lower bowl almost. So I'm very curious as to how they basically filled it up.
They probably did, some of that. It
AI
could have been a cutaway shot, or they could have digitally, kind of enhanced that with crowd and stuff like that. But the actual stuff that was going on the court and the leprechaun and all that stuff was actual real people in there.
And I'm also curious. It looks like they're playing Georgia of all teams. Yeah, they're playing Georgia Tech. Wonder where the other team came from. Is it other Notre Dame players?
I was wondering about that as well.
Team?
That's something. Yeah, didn't ask.
Those are all the things I like to know.
No, it's like I was actually wondering about that because they don't have, like the practice squad players that they have are guys. So they wouldn't have been obviously playing against them. Did the whoever filmed the commercial, the production company, did they bring in like some players to play the Georgia Tech players? Yeah, interesting.
Anyway, it's still cool, and I love the opportunity that the ladies get to make a little money on the side here. So it's awesome.
Right. Yep, exactly. So Bill Belichick says they should rename the Lombardi Trophy, which of course goes to the Super Bowl winner, for Tom Brady, because you can't win games without good players. You buy or sell it.
Well, he knows they can't win without good players because he hasn't won since Brady left. But renaming the Super Bowl trophy is dumb, and it is one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. And it's also a stupid.
Wasn't something from like 3 seconds ago the stupidest thing you've ever heard? Like.
No,
that's the one he couldn't disagree more with.
Oh,
I couldn't disagree more.
That's what it was.
Yes,
stupidest thing ever.
Sean, I'm all in on this stuff. Okay. Here's another thing. I don't know what the context of this was. I can't imagine he just came out and said it. He had to have been asked a question about it. That's the only thing I can think of. And
he was talking to Jim Gray. I don't know exactly.
Okay.
I didn't listen to the
whole
that's
interview, the case. Dumb question. Dumber response. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah. So here's what I'm
standard is the standard, Vince.
That's right.
Here's what I'm gonna say. I think the logic makes sense. Why do you name a trophy after an individual coach when it's obviously a collective and team effort? But what I'd have to say is I still have to sell it because we're just too far at this point. It's already been the Lombardi. It's already been awarded as the Lombardi for such a long time. Like, that's the part I like. It's not overly stupid, like Vince is saying. Like, I get the logic, but it's just like you can't do it now. Like, there's just certain things. Like, we don't need to change it now. Essentially, like if we were going back in time and we could restart from the very first Super Bowl, sure, maybe come up with something a little bit more creative than just one person's name. But we're just too far, and it's like there's other things to be concerned with than should we rename the Lombardi Trophy. Is I think where I'm going to rest on this one.
And the reason the Lombardi Trophy is the Lombardi Trophy, obviously Vince Lombardi, he won the first 2 Super Bowls, and before there were Super Bowls, he was winning NFL championships.
Right.
Prior to that, he was the greatest coach ever at the time, and that's why they named it after him ultimately. And I feel like, because I've heard people say, well, you can't rename the Lombardi Trophy after a player. You need to name it after a coach. You could make the MVP trophy the Tom Brady Trophy or something like that. I almost feel like Bill Belichick was not a humble brag, but kind of trying to throw this out there saying, well, you should rename it after Brady because, I'm pro player, like I'm such behind, like, he was hoping that Tom Gray or somebody else would just say, well, we should name it after Belichick because he's won the most Super. That's what I think that Bill Belichick was actually aiming for in all this whole thing. Like that someone would redirect this back to him and like, well, we just need to do that. We need to rename this after Belichick, but nobody's done this so far. I absolutely don't think that they should be renaming this for Tom Brady because, what happens in 10 years when Patrick Mahomes is regarded as the greatest quarterback over Tom Brady? Like, I know that would make Vince very happy because
well, then what happens
apparently
when
Patrick Mahomes whines too much. But then what happens when the next guy comes along?
Just keep renaming the dang thing.
Yes, you can't rename the thing after every great
Right.
player who
That's
comes
exactly
along.
right.
We didn't name it after Joe Montana or Terry Bradshaw back in the day. We don't need to rename it after Tom Brady now.
Right.
What were you going to say, Jesse? The Dan Campbell 4th place trophy. Where did that come from?
Because DK took a shot and said the Brian Schottenheimer trophy, and we all know that Dan Campbell in Detroit love to celebrate their 4th place NFC Championship loss trophy.
As I said, I like Dan Campbell, and I was pulling for the Lions this year, but don't think that it doesn't make me at least a little bit happy to see some other team besides the one that I root for flop in their first big home playoff game ever. So
it's fair.
Like I said, I was pulling for them, but
your misery is our misery.
That's right. We can all schadenfreude this thing together, baby.
Especially DK, who loves to get in his cowboy shots.
Speaking of Tom Brady, fill in the blank. It's blank that Brady announced today that he's starting a weekly newsletter called 199. He's going to talk about sports, wellness, business, and other topics.
It's too much. Tom Brady's doing the broadcast. He's doing, he's doing the part ownership of the Raiders. I just feel like every time I'm just seeing too much Tom Brady these days. I loved when he was just a football player and that's what he did. But I think there's too much Tom Brady.
He needs to do less, not more.
That's all.
That's what happens when athletes retire, man. They got to find something to fill their time.
I guess.
Apparently, he's going to do it with a newsletter. Okay. And
do people read? I realize newsletters are becoming like these big things. Do you guys read any newsletters?
No, and I never will. So the fact that he's starting his own newsletter, this will be the first and the last time I ever hear about it. And it took me a second to remember why it's called the 199, by the way. I figured it out on my own without having to Google it. But
so why is it? I haven't Googled it.
It's because he was the 199th pick in the draft.
Yeah, there we go. I didn't have to Google it. I'm just smart.
I didn't either. I figured it out.
Ring the bell, Vince. You double hit that SOB. There you go.
But yeah, it's a weird name for it. But okay, whatever. He wants to. I got a chip on my shoulder. The whole thing like that should have gone out the window a long time ago. But that's fine. It's like you said, Sean. Who reads newsletters? It's going to be an email blast. Here's the thing. He's probably not going to have anything to do with it either. It's going to be his people. You know what I mean? Like, oh, Tom, don't forget to submit your stuff for the newsletter.
Like, is he actually going to write this? Like, why are you taking the time to write a newsletter? Why don't you just host a podcast? Like it feels like by the way, it would make you a little bit more natural sounding when you're doing your NFL broadcast games if you talked more into a microphone, because that's what it just. You want to be part owner of the Raiders. You want to do the broadcasting, and you got a lot of people complaining about that. It's like, oh, now I'm going to go on Twitter, which he probably tweets twice a year to tweet about, tweet his video about his new newsletter, 199.
I still think it's a complete conflict of interest for him to be an announcer and a part owner. That part still bothers me. So I'm just going to throw that out there.
But does it really I know it bothers a lot of people. Does it really matter that much? Because I realize, he does have a say in what's going on with the Raiders. He had a big part apparently in the the interview process with Pete Carroll and all that stuff. I mean, about it, so he's not hiding it. So like,
no, he's not hiding it at all.
Does it really impact his ability to go out and talk about other teams on a weekly basis?
We'll find out because I Can he? I mean, is he going to end up being the Kirk Herbstreit of the NFL football? You know what I mean? Like, is he going to call Raiders games and be a
Well, the
homer?
Raiders would have to be good for him to call a game because he's
Fair.
in the number one TV crew. So
But, you know, Tom Brady
if it
is the
comes
number
to,
one
like, if they get good in a
human.
couple of years,
No, Tom
Yeah.
Brady's the number one human on the planet, according to some people. So, you know, eventually he's going to call a Raiders game.
he's the
Eventually
number
it's going to
one
happen.
human.
Well, you know what I mean. People worship the ground Tom Brady walks
Oh.
on. It's really annoying. I'm just saying, eventually he's going to have to call a Raiders game. What is that going to sound like? That's all I'm saying. You know what I mean? Like, can you put aside your feelings? Like,
Can you be
Troy Aikman
subjective?
does a great job. He's called 1 million Cowboys games, and I think he does a really good job of being neutral. Okay, so there's your Cowboys.
Oh, that's
love
the
for the
Eagles,
day.
Giants, and
Well,
Washington fans.
Eagles are more worried about, you know, climbing up greased telephone poles or whatever, light posts, and probably losing in a week. So there you go. But I just don't know that he's not good enough to be impartial. How about that? I don't think he's good enough. I don't think he's as polished enough of an announcer.
To me, because it's Tom Brady, I think that most fans would tell you that, you know, when it comes to these conflicts of interest, the first conflict of interest and the most important conflict of interest that most viewers would see watching a game is the team that the analyst played for, because that's who he's most associated with. So to me, there's more conflict of interest just from a fan perception standpoint with Tom Brady and the New England Patriots than there is with Tom Brady and the Las Vegas Raiders.
Or a guy that played in the league and obviously hates your team, aka Greg Olsen with the Dallas Cowboys. But we can continue.
There you go. Case in point. Like Jesse sees bias with every announcer who opens his mouth who talks about the Cowboys.
Greg Olsen makes it a point to be
Here's what I would love to see. I know Kyle Brandt doesn't do play-by-play. I want the Kyle Brandt, Greg Olsen, like maybe Netflix next year.
Dan Orlovsky.
They're doing the Cowboys on Christmas Day next year. Yeah, just throw Orlovsky in the mix there as well.
And make sure he's eating a Reese's peanut butter cup while he's doing it.
Cowboys Haters Club. Michael Parks must be a Mike Tomlin fan as well. I do not
care. That's cool.
Okay, so DK, I've just got to address a couple of different things because one is factually, he says the Lions won more games in 1 year than the Cowboys won the last 2 years. That's incorrect. Get your facts straight.
How far off is it though?
And then DK, I mean, the Cowboys were a playoff team last year. They won 12 games last year.
And they still squeaked out, I think, 7 this year. 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then DK says, you know, when we talked about the fact that they lost that playoff game, he says missing half their team. You might remember the reason you're in this podcast is because you're a Notre Dame football fan. How many Notre Dame starters did Marcus Freeman not have as they marched to the national championship game? If you're going to use that weak sauce, come on, DK, you're better than that. Come on. You can't use that as an excuse.
There's just a lot of rumbling for a franchise that's never won a Super Bowl.
There's something we can agree on, DK. Stats are for losers. Joseph has something for Vince. He says, do you think Mike Norvell interviewing with Alabama contributed to Florida State's collapse in 2024?
No, I don't think it had anything to do with it. No, I mean, that's the short answer is no, because that was something that happened in the offseason. It had nothing to do with them losing every single game that they played. Like that, had, you know, he might have pissed off some people on the team or whatever. Okay, maybe, but they have so many kids coming in through the portal that I don't think it mattered a whole lot, to be perfectly honest with you. And it had nothing to do with the way that the entire staff coached, and had nothing to do with the way the entire team played. So yeah, I don't think it had anything to do with it.
Yeah, I think over-reliance on the transfer portal,
yes,
you know, played a big part in it.
Yep.
And
which, again, we have
having a quarterback played a big part in it.
We have yet to see a team that reliant on the portal be successful year in and year out. The IU thing is going to be an interesting experiment this season to see how good they are when they're as reliant on the transfer portal as they are. You know, can they repeat what they did last year? Survey says no.
And can they actually play a legit Big Ten schedule this season and not get all?
What is that though? What's a legit Big Ten schedule?
Well, they dodged some of the big dogs, is what I'm saying.
I know. I'm just kidding, kind of.
No, I Vince, trust me. There's 3 teams in the Big Ten that are good every year.
Big Ten is so top heavy.
It's so top heavy.
Yeah, it's so top heavy.
It's not even funny how top heavy it is. And I'll admit it. Their top teams can and have beaten SEC schools, but if we're going pound for pound, average across the whole conference.
Yeah, like number 1 versus number 1, 2 versus 2.
Go down it's the SEC is winning that. And I think SEC's 6 could beat Big Ten's 3 or 4. You know, like they would start to be able to jump up at some point is what I'm also saying.
Agreed.
Dan Patrick says the NFL should mark the jerseys of Pro Bowl or alternates because too many alternates get in and it shouldn't count on their resumes. Do you buy or sell it?
This is the best thing I've ever heard. Vince said a lot of stuff is the worst or the stupidest he's ever heard, but this is the best thing I ever heard. So this is a huge buy for me because I've thought about this before. I was like, why do these guys get celebrated when they're literally only getting invited because other guys can't make it for various different reasons? Maybe they're still going to play in the Super Bowl. Maybe guys are, have some lingering issues like CeeDee Lamb. They need to recover. So why should you get all the recognition when you're the backup, you're the plan B? And so I do think that there should be something that it's still an honor to be there, but it's you should be a first team all Pro Bowl and a second team all Pro Bowl or something. And you have a different classification.
But it's not like they even play the game anymore. What difference does it? Because they do have first team all pro and second team all pro, that actual designation.
Because that's a paper. That's like all conference. That's a paper.
Right.
Award.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's
and monetary.
All
a lot
American
of guys get
or all
incentive
conference.
with those.
Yeah.
Granted.
Yeah. Right.
Well, if look,
so really, you should probably just end it with that. You're either first team all pro or second team all pro, and nobody else because they don't even play a game.
Right.
It shouldn't even matter. It shouldn't. It should go nowhere that you ended up, running a 3-legged race, at the Pro Bowl games or whatever. So
GMs need to be smart and they need to, put because you're right, Jesse. There are monetary extras for making these postseason teams or making, whatever. If you're an alternate or if you're a guy that gets picked a day beforehand because somebody else can't go or whatever, you should not receive what it says that you receive. You know what I mean? There should be tiers to it. Are you a first team Pro Bowler or are you an alternate Pro Bowler like that? You should not get, you're still getting recognized. You're still
you should be celebrated.
Yes, agreed. But it should not be to the same ilk as everybody else. I completely agree with that. And if I agree with Sean on that one, first team all pro, second team all pro. And if you want to do a third team all pro, okay, right. Fine. But if you can't find enough guys who are willing to participate in these stupid games that they're doing from that list,
right,
then don't have it because it's dumb. I literally saw the wide receiver competition where he put on giant Mickey Mouse hands and is trying to catch a football.
Put on these oversized gloves and they're supposed to catch a football.
What the flip are we doing? It was horrible.
I thought you were going to say it.
So does it go without saying that none of us have any interest in these Pro Bowl games?
No, I do. I love the skill competition stuff.
Wow.
Really? The actual skill
TV
competition? Because I saw the Bosa's doing a speed walking thing.
Well, I like when they do more football related skill stuff. Like when the quarterbacks are throwing at the different targets and trying to earn points, and then they do the team obstacle course races, and then wide receivers do the trick catches or trying to jump upside down and stuff. I don't know. I get it. Some of it is the non-football stuff I really don't have interest in, but when we're looking at actual football skills, I do find it cool because there's no point in the game. And really, especially in football, there's so much more risk of injury compared to other sports in terms of all-star games. And so, yeah. I mean, that's basically what it is, right? It's the NFL's version of an all-star game, but football is a highly dangerous sport. I wouldn't want my franchise wide receiver getting hurt in a Pro Bowl game. And so I get, trying to find solutions. Get rid of the game.
The players obviously didn't want that. It was just
Right.
not worth, risking injury to get tackled in a game.
Just
That's
no game,
totally
no flag
meaningless.
football, no game at all. Just make it a huge skills competition so I can
we'll
see the best wide
Cancel it all.
receivers just play against each other. And I do find it interesting to watch them in the skills.
I thought that I was going to like this much more than I actually do. I've been very bored trying to watch it the last couple of years, and like with all these flag football games and stuff like that. Vince, are you old enough to remember the Battle of the Network Stars TV?
I know of
shows?
it. It was never on while I was actively watching TV.
Like
but I know
that, or
about.
like maybe like the American Gladiators or some version of that. Like, I think it would be a little more interesting, like if they broke up into like little teams and it was more like competitive like that. It's like, okay, pick your guy that's going to do this, and then you have the the tug of war and the relay race, and all these. And I realize they're
40-yard dash,
some of that, but it doesn't need to cover like 4 days. Yeah, like 40-yard dash.
Parsons would win all of them. He's the fastest, strongest, whatever you need him to be.
It still can't win.
Hey, ding ding ding!
Sorry, it's too easy.
Hit the bell.
I just get rid of all of it. Make them a list, because all the players care about anyway is making the extra money. So if you're on the list, you make the money. Done. Like it's just, we're done. We're done here.
And they love it being in a warm Vegas or LA.
Those
they
guys
get to
can
go out.
They're all going someplace warm this time of year anyway.
Like the attention's brought to them.
They're not really friends, Jesse. All for show. The real friends go on vacation
those guys
together.
Eat that stuff up. The glamour of the event is what I'm getting at.
Say you had two teams, and so again, like one of your competitions, rather than having the quarterback, throw footballs at moving targets or whatever. Okay, you've got a quarterback, but then you've got like a couple receivers, and you've got then the other team has a DB, and you actually run pass routes, and you get like so many routes. And you have to, I don't know how interesting.
Everyone's homework for next week is.
But again, I just feel like if it was more like team competition, where you could actually, and you did it within like an hour or 2 hours instead of expanding it over 4 days, like they're doing this thing, maybe it'd be a little more interesting. I don't know. Okay, so you guys had the super chat question in last night's show that we're doing today,
and it was from Big Hoss.
Big Hoss. All right. I don't think I've ever seen it.
I'm glad you listened to the show, because if you were on the spot, it would take a lot for you to boil down to 4 shows in a span of like 5 minutes. The Rolodex of shows that you have is unreal.
Not wrong.
It's very true. So what is your Mount Rushmore of TV shows? Did you guys give any last night?
We gave a few. Yeah. No, we gave a few. Okay. But you are much more well-versed in the TV genre than I think we are, to be honest.
So you're actually putting all this on me. Okay.
No.
Because we talked about it yesterday, and we came up with a few different ones.
Right.
I don't know how good I felt about like the top 4. Like, I feel like I should dig a little bit deeper to find some other ones, is what I'll say. But
Jesse,
we were curious as to what you would say.
Can you guess what my top 2 would be? My top 2 are the easiest.
Lost, Breaking Bad.
Lost is one of them. Seinfeld is the other.
Seinfeld. Duh. I said Seinfeld is definitely on mine as well.
Yeah. Lost was on mine.
Jesse and I watched Lost together, first, airings when it was still on TV. Have you completed your complete Lost rewatch, Jess?
I stalled out. I'm not gonna lie. It's
what
a
season?
lot.
What season did you get to?
It's a lot to watch, Vince, and they're all like hour-long episodes.
It really is, because like those first couple seasons,
and there's like 25
to 30 episodes.
Yeah, and there's 6 or 7 seasons. So I think I fizzled out around like season 3 or 4. I want to say.
Did they get to the time jumps?
Yes, they started time jumping.
Okay. Tommy says he finished Lost. I've done a complete rewatch. Okay, yeah. So Seinfeld, like I can literally, if Seinfeld's on, I've seen every episode, but I can still just plop down and watch watch like an hour and a half of Seinfeld a night, because we all know it's on all the time. Breaking Bad is on my list as well. I had to think because you said like the Rolodex is so long. There's so many different shows.
See, that's what we talked about. Like Sean's not going to narrow it down.
Before we go on, it's definitely Lost, Seinfeld, and Breaking Bad.
Yes.
So we talked about all three of those for him, by the way, yesterday. We thought that those would be three of yours for sure.
I think I've done 2 Breaking Bad rewatches, if not 3.
Wow.
So, yeah, very good show. Very good show.
What's your fourth? What's your final one?
My fourth, I know this is going to be up there for one of you. I don't know if it'll be there for both of you or not. Friday Night Lights.
We said that one too. Yeah, that's definitely on mine. 100%. Yes. 100%.
Game of Thrones didn't make the list. It was like it might be next, but it's not top 4.
I need to amend mine from yesterday a little bit. I have Lost, Friday Night Lights, The Office is now in mine. I did some rethinking.
Another quality.
And the last one, I wanted to go something a little current, something I really liked. One of my favorite actors, Ozark.
Ooh, I forgot about Ozark. That's another good one, though. Yeah.
So that's my list.
You're getting a lot.
I wanted a good variety because you got a funny show in The Office. You got the suspense. There's a lot of things you could call Lost, but the suspense, the trying to think about it and figure out what's going on, the mental aspect.
Mm-hmm.
I liked Ozark a lot because, again, it's more modern and something that's come out recently. And then Friday Night Lights is like that sports show, that, the football show of the childhood. I mean, that's like something everyone.
I can't imagine how they did Lost because, like you said, all those episodes, and there were so many little like mysteries and all this. There was literally a cliffhanger in every freaking episode of that show. They just kept you hanging. It's like, oh, what's going to happen next week? And then then at the end of the season, they would drop one off. It's like, we've got to go back. And it's like, what? You're off the island? What is even going on right now? Yeah. Vince is just looking at us like.
So for me, in no particular order, Friday Night Lights, obviously, we've talked about that. Seinfeld is definitely on there for me. West Wing would be a big one for me. I
never watched West Wing.
Very big fan of West Wing. I like political dramas in general. So there's a lot of political dramas that I really do enjoy watching. So like Madam Secretary is a good one. There's a couple of other ones. So definitely like the political dramas, but West Wing is definitely the number one. Didn't hurt that the president was a Notre Dame fan. That was a nice little twist to that whole thing.
Shout out Martin Sheen. Yep.
Martin Sheen, man, he should have run for actual president. I think he probably could have won while that show was going on, because a lot of people, I remember this from back when it was on in the first place. A lot of people thought he was the actual president when that show was on, which I thought
that's true. Very true.
So that's definitely one of mine. Somebody said Designated Survivor. I thought that one was absolutely excellent, Tommy. It got weird once Netflix picked it up. I completely agree with that as well. So that's why it's not up here, because the ending was not great. It got weird.
And they only did maybe 3 seasons.
A couple of episodes, or a couple of seasons, and then it was on NBC, I think, and then Netflix picked it up when it got canceled, and then it just got funky. It just wasn't good after that. See, now it's where it gets really hard, to be perfectly honest with you, because you've got, like Tommy said, Big Bang Theory is a good one. Really enjoyed that show when it was on. There was another one that I was thinking of, and I cannot remember what. Friends was a big one that I really enjoyed.
Friends. Yeah,
I am a Friends fan. I was looking at like these lists, and some of these shows are just like, no. No.
Friends has had great staying power. Like 2 that we used to watch, like back on those, Cheers. No one said Cheers. I haven't heard anyone say.
That's a little
Cheers.
Before my time.
Right. Hasn't had, again, like the staying power of a Friends, but that was like so huge. Cheers. And then, that became Frasier. Underrated one that we used to watch was Wings.
Wings is fantastic.
Seinfeld, Wings, and Mad About You were all on that
Yeah.
must-see TV
Mad
Thursday, and
About
then
You,
ER would be
baby.
on after that.
Woo! Yeah, I like all those. So I like a lot of TV, those. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's hard to.
Yeah.
You got to be in a mood for different stuff.
Yeah. Salty says, looks like MASH fanatics have cycled out. Like when I was growing up, because there wasn't that much, TV back then, but I was like, MASH would have probably been the number one there for a while.
No Gilligan's Island.
MASH
Gilligan's Island. I only saw Gilligan's Island in reruns, Jess. I'm not that old.
Oh,
MASH's finale was like 1984 or something like that, or 1983, wasn't it?
83 or 84. Yep.
So like, I was born in 1980, so MASH was not on my radar. I can
Night Court,
tell you
another
that
good one.
I liked, Vince, when you were talking about political dramas, I liked House of Cards, and then it took a nosedive as well. I don't know if you guys ever watched that on Netflix. I thought it was
I tried to watch it.
Probably after Kevin Spacey, couldn't get back on the show.
Yeah.
Also
Fair.
true.
Andre
so
says
does The
no
Office
science.
come close for any of you, or is it just like
My son loves The Office? He watches.
I forgot
reruns of
about The Office,
all the
but I
time.
would say Office is probably top 10. Yeah.
So nothing like, because it's so similar to, it's just like a comedy, right? So it's like your
Sure.
Friends, Seinfeld,
Like
has
everybody
will
loves
The Office
Raymond,
ever
like-
overtake those kind of shows for
No.
you guys?
No.
Not even
Especially the
Friends?
later years. The problem is the later years of The Office stunk. They're bad.
Yeah, last couple of seasons,
Well, they couldn't
especially
figure out how
the
to
one
end
when
it.
Michael was gone. But
Well,
yeah,
when Michael left, it was terrible after that. I'm sorry. So
Well,
like that,
let's
that
just
hurts it.
cut that part out.
Well, you
when it
can't
got
do
to
that.
what was that? What was James Spader's character? Was it something Saturday or something like that?
I mean,
Like,
they like went through so many like top stars on that show at the end. I mean, Will
they
Ferrell
brought
was
Will
on there
Ferrell in. Yeah, and they had what's her name? The woman
from Misery.
Kathy Bates.
Kathy Bates was on. Like, yeah, they just could not figure it out towards the end, and it was bad.
Curb Your Enthusiasm.
That's a big one
Curb.
for this guy.
Totally. Totally forgot. Curb would definitely be top 10 though, as well. Like if you like Seinfeld, I don't know how you don't like Curb. And
I just never watched it. I just never watched it because it was on HBO.
You never paid for HBO.
No, not my house. Not growing up and not as an adult. Some people are like, no science fiction. I am a big Star Trek fan. I will say that.
I'm not into the Star Wars, Hobbit.
You know what else we
Star
forgot?
Wars is not Star Trek. Don't be that guy, Jesse.
I'm just saying.
Don't be that guy.
That's all sci-fi. Star Trek, Star Wars,
Family.
Watch Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones. It doesn't do anything for me. Those
So
don't
you're
do
not a Game of
anything
Thrones
for me.
fan. That's what I'm
I've
asking.
never watched it.
Okay, all right. Because I was gonna nail you for that one. If that's what you're gonna say.
You know what we both forgot, Vince? The original Quantum Leap.
Oh my gosh, good call.
That's
Yeah.
going to go in the top 10.
Original Quantum Leap is absolutely in the top 10.
Yeah.
No
all
doubt.
over that.
And Joe, you're right. Star Trek: The Next Generation was by far the best Star Trek. It's not close.
I only watched the original Star Trek. I never watched any of the.
Yeah, the original one's just too campy for me. It's just too much.
It is. It is. But that's what, again, like reruns, all that stuff growing up.
Right. No, I get it. Yeah.
Schitt's Creek, Decaf. That's like I watched the first season and we never Moonlighting. Moonlighting is
Moonlighting's classic 80s,
They brought Moonlighting back on Hulu and I was like so fired up for it. And then I watched like the first 3 episodes and I'm like, man, this is just not what I remember. Bruce Willis and Sybil Shepherd. And I'm like, do I just need to go to the second season where, like things are clicking a little bit more? Because it's not quite what I remembered. But I used to love that show every week back in the late 80s.
Does it say that was my childhood? My parents watched Moonlighting for sure.
Yeah.
My mom
Married
was a
with
big
Children.
Magnum fan, Magnum PI.
Magnum, that was one I used to watch.
She was a big one. Big.
Did you ever
Magnum
watch Married
fan.
with Children?
Oh yeah, that was on at night. That was like the kind of the forbidden show to watch, like
Right.
late at night. Yeah.
Right.
Yep. There's a lot of good TV out there. There's no doubt about that.
Full House, the Benny Hill
Hey,
show.
Full
I
House
remember
is
Benny Hill
fantastic.
All right. Well, MacGyver, another.
Yeah, that was a good one. They brought MacGyver. They tried to reboot MacGyver, and it was terrible.
Yeah.
I really tried to watch it because I liked the original. It was awful. It was
There could
really
be a whole
awful.
show on this topic. I'm pretty.
We really could do a whole show on this.
Scrubs.
They're bringing that
someone's
back.
Idea of,
They're bringing Scrubs back.
Ooh, didn't know that.
Are they really?
Yes, they are. Same cast, from what I heard.
They've tried to do a lot of these reboots. Have any of the
I know.
reboots actually worked when they've done it? It's like they've lasted a year or two, and that's it.
Yeah, that's a great call. I'm nervous. I don't know why they're trying to reboot Friday Night Lights. I'm all for it. I'm going to watch it, but it's going to have a completely new cast, same universe, completely new cast like 20 years later. I'm just not sure how to feel that they're going to be dipping back into that.
Got to restore that tradition, Vince.
Because it was such a good series. Such a good series. And what's Friday Night Lights without the original cast? Without Kyle Chandler? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I can do it. Big fan of Kyle Chandler.
See, when I heard that they were going to reboot it, I thought maybe they were going to like follow
him to Philadelphia. Yeah, that's where he went.
Something like that, or maybe they've come back to Texas again after Philadelphia, or whatever. But that's
what it needs to be. But I'm sure Connie Britton doesn't want to do it again. I'm sure she's off doing her own thing. And
she's kind of become almost too big a star, probably.
I know.
Something like that again.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Coach Taylor, you can get a divorce. It's okay. I will take a divorced Coach Taylor over no Coach Taylor. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what they do with that.
Yeah, I know. We'll see.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for tonight. We could probably go on and on with.
I know, right? I'm going to get in trouble soon, I'm sure. I was like,
TV shows
Friday night's an hour. Don't worry.
I know. All right, hit the like button before you leave, and we will be back next week. No football this weekend. Only Pro Bowl games. Nothing at all.
Like you said, no football.
Yeah, that's true. All right, hit the like button. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week. Aviation Sports Talk.